بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وحبيبنا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا من علمك ما ترضى به عنا ولا تؤاخذنا بما تعلمه منا. يا حليم خلقنا بخلق الحلم وحققنا بحقائق العلم. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي وصلى الله عليه وسلم محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. جزاكم الله خير everyone for coming out again. Barakallahu fikum. We're going to be continuing our weekly reading from the book Mukhtasar Minhaj al-Qasidin by Ibn Qudama rahimahullah ta'ala. We're in the section where he's talking about the rights of the believers, those that are of family connection to you and your neighbors. And we stopped specifically at the point where he talks about visiting those that are sick. Before we even get into that, I want to just highlight the fact that unfortunately, this has become something that we oftentimes don't do. We don't either have connection to, do we even know when people are sick? And I think that we need to be mindful of how separated our community is to the point where we don't know when each other not feeling well. And it's a sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ to visit the sick and to try to make sure that they're doing well and to make sure that we're taking care of them, as we'll see inshallah. But we should try every once in a while to visit the sick. There are many, many benefits to it. But some of the very practical ones is that it's a reminder for us that each and every one of us has the capacity and the possibility to become sick, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the controller of all things, and that He subhanahu wa ta'ala so easily can put us in that circumstance. I like to reflect on the reality of a headache, that it comes completely beyond our control. It can be completely debilitating just because we have a headache. And we can take medicine for it, but sometimes there's very little that we can do to even stop the headache. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect all of us, those that are sick, and heal us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect those of us that aren't sick, and to make things easy for our brothers and sisters in Gaza, in Sudan, in the Congo, in Kashmir, and wherever they may be across the world, that are sick and hungry in very, very difficult circumstances. Allahumma ameen. فقال المصنف رحمه الله تعالى ونفعنا الله بعلومه في الدارين. The author, may Allah be pleased with him and allow us to benefit from his knowledge in this life and the next. He says, from the etiquettes of the person who's actually doing the visiting. Because later on he's going to talk about the etiquettes of the one who's sick. From the etiquettes of the one who's going to visit sick people is that we put our hand on the sick person. We show them affection. We show them compassion. We care about them. That their sickness is not something, obviously if it's contagious, blah, 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 but we don't make them feel that they are now of another caste or unworthy of love and affection because they're sick. So we put our hand on them and we ask them how they're doing. But also simultaneously, we don't try to stay for a long time. We try to make our being with them light, that it doesn't make them feel like they have to do a lot. And we show them kindness and gentleness, and we make dua for them and their well-being. And we try not to look at the place that they're embarrassed of or the place that's actually sick. And I think this is really important. He mentions many different things. The first, that we put our hand on the sick person and we ask them about how they're doing. Unfortunately, it's very possible, and perhaps we see it in people visit the sick almost as a publicity stunt. And it becomes more about, do you see me now here with sick brother Muhammad? May Allah have mercy on Muhammad. And it becomes about me and not about brother Muhammad or sister Aisha who are actually sick. Our point in being there is to show up for them and to give them a sign of compassion, to lighten their time. But we should ask about how they're doing. وَيُخَفِّفِ الْجُلُوسِ, that we try to lighten our sitting with them. And the literal translation can mean that we don't stay there long, but also our presence makes things light. SubhanAllah, if you visit people who are sick that are of good character and good culture, even though they're sick, they'll try to serve you. SubhanAllah, Sheikh Yasser Fahmi talks about Justice Lahir, who was one of the attorneys, I believe, with Nelson Mandela. He used to live with us in Boston. It was not a time that you saw Justice Lahir except he gave you a gift. May Allah have mercy on him. He would come to Jum'ah from the nursing home or the rehabilitation center he was in and would be like, Sheikh, here's a gift. It would be like crackers, medical socks. It would be, he would print off a dua and give it to him. But you did not see him except he was sick. Sheikh Yasser mentioned one of the last times he saw him, he went to visit him in the hospital. It was like during COVID, and he was very, very sick. And he asked the nurse who bought the food, could he give Sheikh Yasser some food? He's like, I have guests. Can you please give my guests some food? So the nurse was like, this is for you, bro. Like, you're the sick one. And he like brushed him off. So just as Sheikh Yasser relayed the story, he closed his eyes and then opened them. He said within a minute, the man came back with 2 plates for him and the guest. And Justice Lahir said, I never make dua except Allah answers it. Al-Muhim, the shahid here is that sometimes the sick person will now want to go out of their way to take care of us. But if we're visiting them, the point is that we are trying to make this easy for them, that we're not spending a long time with them, that we're not making it heavy. And I'll just share a personal reflection. Don't ever overlook the opportunity to visit someone who's sick. Obviously, we have schedules and we're busy, but if you have an opportunity to visit someone who's sick, and there's no excuse other than like your Netflix show was on, or like you had plans to go get ice cream with your friends or whatever, like make the time. In Ramadan, I was honored and blessed to visit a brother who was sick. And subhanAllah, I couldn't stay longer, but I wanted to. I couldn't stay longer, and I felt really bad. Later on that evening, he passed. Like subhanAllah, just by being there for a little bit of time, I could have been, I wouldn't have had the opportunity had I not gone. And so it's not me, but subhanAllah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sort of just sent me to visit him that one time. And so I'm sharing with you, and I'm the first to be deficient in this category. We should make time to visit those that are sick. Ibn Qudami continues, says that it's mustahab, it's recommended that we also do ruqya shar'iyya, that we also do some of the actions the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ mentioned in Sahih Muslim, where he told Uthman ibn al-As, when he complained to the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ about a sickness that he had, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ told him to take his hand and put it on the place that is hurt on his body, and to say Bismillah 3 times, and to say 7 times, أعوذ بعزة الله وقدرته من شر ما أجده وأجداه وأحذره أعوذ بالله أعوذ بعزة الله وقدرته من شر ما أجده وأحذره. We seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by His might and His ability from all evil that He has put in there and also warned from and prevented. Another tangent, but I think is worthy of mentioning, we often overlook the metaphysical reality of illnesses and sicknesses, and we reduce it to the physical things. So I have a headache, I take Tylenol, I take Aleve, I take whatever these drugs are, and we forget about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala being the one that controls these things. And we forget about when we have a stomach ache, we know Pepto-Bismol or whatever antacid we're taking, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the controller of all things. So we need to ask ourselves, when we get sick, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect all of us, is the first thing that we think about the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the controller of all things? Or is it, what medication am I going to take? And do we remember these type of things that come in the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ authentically narrated that we should do? That doesn't mean we don't take the means, that we don't take medicine, we don't see a doctor, but that means that we need to try to have both of them. We don't forget about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and things that we have to do, but also we try to do as much as we can. Now Ibn Qudama, he transitions to, first he talked about what we should do if we're visiting someone. He now talks about what we should do if we are those that are sick. That we have husn al-sabr, that we are patient in a good way. Sometimes we can be patient, but it's almost like a belligerent or a frustrated patience, and we show everyone how it is. I know me. I'm the first person, when I get sick, my wife will tell you I've become a baby. And may Allah forgive us, as men, we're like really guilty of this, right? We become sick, it's like, oh, I got a wah-wah, my stomach hurts, I got a headache, blah, blah, blah. And he tells us we should be patient beautifully. And that we're not overdoing it. And we're remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we're trying to show that. وَقِلَّةِ الشَّكْوَى وَتَضْجَرْ, that we try to little or lessen our complaints and Allahumma salli Muhammad, our complaints and the what's the word I'm looking for? Allahumma salli Muhammad. Like, what's the word? We'll just stop with complaints. That we then try to rush to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with dua and relying upon Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when we're sick, our responsibility is to try to be patient in the best way possible, that we lessen the amount, we try not to complain excessively, and that we rush and we hasten to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in dua and tawakkul. That we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who controls all things. Now Ibn Qudama transitions to still talking about sort of sickness, but the most extreme version of sickness, which is death. He says that we should strive to fulfill the rites of the janazah and follow it and go to visit the grave. He says, and what's intended by following the janazah here is fulfilling the rights of a Muslims and being aware of this reality. So what we should strive to do is make sure that every once in a while we pray janazah on someone. Alhamdulillah, I just found out about an app today that like announces all the janazahs in the area. I think it's Amin or something, I forget. I just heard about today, subhanAllah. But we should try to make sure we go pray janazah. And when we go pray janazah, we should do it for two reasons. First and foremost, the right of our brother or our sister. But secondly, because we could very well and will be soon in that same exact position and someone will be praying on top of us. I'm not trying to be morbid, but this is a reality. Our lives are fickle. Our lives are very quick that will go by, that the meaning of which is based upon our righteousness and our closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we should try to make sure we fulfill their rights and that we also take into account that we will be taken into account one day. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give all of us a good death. Al-A'mash, one of the Atba' Tabi'in, I believe he was, he said that we used to visit or we used to follow, we used to be present at janazah and we wouldn't even know who the person was that we were giving condolences to. And we used to be sad at the grave. They would follow people in their janazah and their grave, even if they knew who they were, they wouldn't. And what's important, what he says, what is intended by visiting the grave is that we go and make dua and that we become aware and we remember that situation and our hearts become soft. This is also something that we have left. We don't even make time. There are ad'iyah that we say every time we pass a graveyard of a Muslim and a graveyard of a non-Muslim. But we should make sure that we try to go and remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and visit the graves and to make dua for those that are there. But equally important, perhaps even more important, is that we become aware and our hearts become soft. And remember the fact that we could be and will be in the same situation in a very short period of time. From the etiquettes of following janazah is that we walk, we don't run, and we have khushu', we have tranquility, we try to consistently remain tranquil, and we try to leave off speech as much as possible. This is not a time in which we should be laughing and joking and excessive, not only because we're supposed to be mindful of it, but also the loved ones of this person who's passed is in this procession. And so how would you think they're going to feel if they hear us yapping and laughing and all of these type of things? And I think we could even take this to, even if we're not going to the grave, even the musalla. It's very easy for us to turn off, right? We disassociate our feelings and khalas, that's it. And we see a brother or sister we haven't seen for a long time and we forget about the masakeen who just lost a loved one. So that we lessen our speech and we try to pay attention to the one who's dead. And we think about death, we reflect on death and prepare ourselves for it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give all of us a good death in the best state possible. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises us in the Quran, كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ. Every single one of us shall taste death. And if we're able to be aware of this, the fact that we all shall meet our Maker one day, then that helps us recalibrate and reassess everything in our lives. The things that we like, the things that we don't like, the things that are difficult for us and things that are easy, the things that we aspire toward and the things that we don't. May Allah make it easy for us. Ibn Qudama, he then transitions again into talking about the rights of the neighbor. And this also is something that we overlook or we don't reflect on. The fact that our neighbors have rights on us. And because of our atomized worlds that we live in, or the worlds where we live in our little nuclear families away from everyone, we can forget about the people that are around us and the fact that we all are a part of this larger community together. SubhanAllah, when I was moving, a brother had his mother, who, I don't know, but his mother cooked for us. And not just for us, but for everyone who was helping us move. So we moved into a new house, and like 13 brothers and sisters helped us move. And my wife, being a very cultured woman, was like, what are we going to do? Are you going to order food? Like, how are we going to feed them? They've done all this stuff for us. SubhanAllah, the brother who was timing it the whole day, no one else knew this but me. He's like, when are we going to be there? When should we be done? I don't know. His mom came at the perfect time with everything needed. We had a sufra, we had silverware, there were napkins, there were drinks. She bought everything. Until today, my wife makes dua for that woman because of how it brought peace to all of our hearts. And SubhanAllah, one of my son's friends is moving from the neighborhood. My wife was able to carry on that tradition. So now the mother of my friend gets rewarded for it, but also because we fed some other people. So I think we should just be mindful of the people around us and how the little things that we do. Do we leave the trash outside of our door? Y'all know who you are. That now all of our neighbors are smelling this horrible trash that we have left out. We don't want to smell it, so now we make it more difficult on our neighbor. How does the outside of our house look? Etc. Right. Ibn Qudamah, he says, he said, we need to know that our neighbors have a right upon us that comes right behind the right of a believer, and that there are levels to this right. He mentions that there's the right of a Muslim, there's the right of the neighbor. It's like there are levels to our rights. I think we mentioned this a little bit last week. There's the right of a neighbor, there's the right of a Muslim, there's the right of a family member, and all of those can be combined into one person. So we just have to be mindful of the different rights of our neighbors and try to be good to them as much as possible. He says that we need to know that it's the right of our neighbors is not stopping harm or trying not to harm them, but they have the right that we are kind to them and we're gentle to them, and that we try to initiate goodness, and that we try to make sure that we start or initiate by giving the salam to them. We say hi. People of ethnic descent think it's like weird to say hi to your neighbors. It's like something's taboo. Like, oh, you one of them? You say hi? My wife asked me one time, are you one of those people every time you see someone, you say hi to them? That's a good thing. As Muslims, we say Assalamu alaikum, which literally is a dua, but how does it make you feel when the one person, we're not going to highlight their ethnic origin, when they say hi to us, how does it make you feel? Should we not? I'm just saying. You know what I'm talking about. How does it make us feel when someone says salam to us? Austin is here, and so he knows what I'm talking about. How does it make us feel when other people do that to us? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us people of good adab at all times. طيب. He says that we should initiate giving salam, and we should try to not be long in the speech that we have with them. That one neighbor, when you park and they want to have a whole hour-long conversation with you, we should try not to do that. We should visit them when they're sick, and when they're in a difficult time, we try to make it easy for them. And we try to also congratulate them in times of goodness. And we forgive them or we try to help make things easy for them, and we try to overlook the things they've done, the mistakes that they've made. And we try not to, subhanAllah, we should not try to look into their house. And you could extend from this, we should try not to gas or cast our gaze on their home. We're not supposed to be inspecting what they got over there. What's going on inside of their house? That's their private space. And that's something we should respect, just like we wouldn't want someone doing that to us. And while you're going on your walk in your neighborhood and someone's curtains are open, it's Maghrib time, they haven't closed them yet, we should lower our gaze. We should try to be respectful of them and what's in their house. We could add on to this the houses that we see from our neighbors that may be bigger than ours, or better than ours, or have more things than ours do. Again, because those things, while the first, what Ibn Qudama specifically talking about is about privacy, right? But also we have to check our own intentions. Do now I fall into a place where I have hasad, I have envy for them, or now I'm thinking about them in a bad way, or things are creeping into my heart simply because I noticed someone's house that Allah blessed them with I don't have. But we have to check ourselves and see how we're feeling and what we're doing. Um, and we should try not to like give them the rights. We try not to make it difficult for them and restrict it, and we don't pour water onto their place, and we don't try to make their. We should care for the area around them, and we don't harm them. Um, and we should try to لا يتعبوا لا يتبع النظر فيما يحمله إلى الدار. We now also shouldn't try to see what they're bringing into their house. Ibn Qudama mentions this was written like 1,000 years ago, but subhanAllah, we have the exact same thing. Like, we got a new TV? Okay, mashallah. How does that make us feel? How does that make them feel? If someone is looking at us like, mashallah, you got the new 65-inch flat screen, oh, the wall, mashallah. How does that, it's aib, right? It's a shameful thing that then makes them feel some kind of way. So we don't make it difficult on them in what they're bringing into their home and etc. And we try not to expose those things that we are exposed to simply because they're neighbors from their private things. Your neighbor, you heard them arguing. You're like, yo, I heard Abdul-Malik arguing yesterday. He was fighting with his wife all the time. Like those are because you have a right now that you're concealing some of those things. We're not telling other one. And we try not to listen to what they're saying. We try not to listen to what they're saying. And we try to pay attention to their needs and the needs of their family if we've seen it or we notice something. And again, I think these are very small things that we can easily overlook because we live, mashallah, whether it be apartment buildings or homes that we don't see anyone. How often, or when was the last time, and I'm guilty of this more than anyone else, that we took a gift to our next door neighbors? When was the last time that we even said hi to our next door neighbors? So we need to make sure that we're analyzing how it is that we're interacting with those people that live close to us and with those people that live around us. Ibn Qudama then transitions into the rights of our loved ones and our family members. And I think this will open a can of worms, so I may not even go into it. We save it for its own class next week. Because this is something that we've talked about this before, if we reduce our relationships to rights and rights alone, then we don't leave much space for us to actually have sakina, to have tranquility and mercy and love in between us. And so we have to make sure that our relationships aren't defined simply by the rights that each of us have. And that if we do find ourselves in a relationship that's reduced to rights, we need to reanalyze what those relationships mean to us and why why is it that they've been reduced to that level. Allahumma salli Muhammad. Khalas, yeah, we'll pause here, open for Q&A, and then next week because I actually want to prepare it a little bit more extensively than just reading what Ibn Qudama says. So anything I said is correct from myself, and from Allah alone, anything is incorrect with myself and the shaitan.